and welcome back to Master Your Life with Kate McKay. This show is dedicated to amazing stories of grit, determination, and transformation. And today I am absolutely thrilled to introduce my guest, Michale Gabriel, to the show. Welcome, Michale.
Thank you. It's so good to be here, Kate. Thank you for having me.
I'm absolutely thrilled that you're here because we're going to talk about something that I love ever so much, is the power of storytelling and how stories aren't just for kids. Stories are our lives, and being able to be a storyteller of both our own stories and the story of others, I believe, is a sacred practice. So I'm thrilled about this opportunity to be with you today. And I would love to start by just reading a little bit about you, but I would love to hear about also too your story through our conversation, but just a bit about you, Michale. So Michale is a Parents' Choice Award-winning performer, an international best-selling author, and founder and CEO of Story by Design. She is a story shaper, inspirational keynote speaker, leadership consultant, storytelling master mentor, and coach, and a workshop facilitator. And most recently, Michale was voted the Inside Edge Foundation for Education's most inspirational speaker of 2021. And today, we're going to get into the importance of getting into the heart of the why. So I have to start. Yes. What was your favorite story when you were a little girl? Were you read to? What was your story?
Well, yes, as a matter of fact, I was, Kate. I grew up in Alaska. I'm a third generation Alaskan. My grandfather went there during the gold rush in 1898. As a child, we would sit on our hide-a-bed, single parent family, my mom, an older brother, younger sister, and me. And she would read to us from Richard Halliburton's Book of Marvels. So I learned about all these amazing places in the world that I knew I wanted to get to one day. She also read to us from a collection called the Blue House Books, and they were a collection of folk tales and fairy tales. And so I would just immerse myself in those stories. And then we also had a book called Igloo Tales, which I still have, as a matter of fact, and it told stories about how the aurora borealis, the northern lights, came to be in the sky, and why the bear has a short tail. And what I learned from that particular book is that everything has a story, and that when we have stories around of the world around us, it makes everything around us more precious, because everything is imbued with story.
Everything is imbued with story.
Yeah.
Before we hit record, Michale, you and I had a really fun conversation talking about something that's really near and dear to our heart, which is what would be either our gift or our diagnose or our magic that we share, which is ADHD.
Yes.
And what I would love to ask you, and I've read about this in a few different studies, that what they've shown is that people who are storytellers, or people who are aware and extra acutely tuned into words and what is between two words, are often trauma-based, that they've had trauma in their life because maybe they weren't feeling safe in their environment. So they always were having to read other people's signals. And so it becomes something that they have to be very acutely aware of. Now, I know that's true for me, and I feel as though I've taken the trauma story and turned it into my brilliance as a storyteller and as a coach and speaker. But what is your take on that study?
Well, I'm in total agreement with it. Total agreement with it. Kate, I was, as I mentioned, raised in a single parent family, but there was a tremendous amount of emotional abuse. I became my mother's mother at age 8. And when my mother she was separated from my father, had 14 years. He lived in a town 50 miles away. And finally, in my junior year of high school, she decided to divorce, but had hoped that there would be money there for college and other kinds of things. There wasn't in the decree. But I actually was out of school 40 days, helping her get ready to go to court. She was so traumatized. In those days, and they don't do it anymore, thank God, but they actually had children testify. So I was sitting testifying against my own father, and all I wanted was his love and his attention. And because of what happened as a result of that divorce, my mother went to bed for a year, never got out of bed except to cook a meal, never got dressed, always had on her a house coat and nightgown, and would yell at her children from the moment we walked into the door until we went to bed at night. You know, when you're going through things, Kate, you don't realize that's not normal unless somebody says, you know, this is not normal, Michelle. To our theater background that we have, Kate, I was a speech and drama major at Alaska Methodist University, and I had the role of Emily in Thornton Wilder's Our Town. And so one day I'm in the rehearsal, I'm on the stage, the director, Frank Brink, is in the back of the darkened auditorium. And I have a scene with my stage father, and I'm doing the scene, and he starts yelling at me. And he said, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Maybe 99% of the people would believe you, but I don't believe you. You're not being authentic. And all of a sudden, and this was very unlike me, I just yelled at him. And I said to him, how do you expect me to relate to a stage father if I don't even know what it's like to relate to a real father? And I start crying.
Holy crap.
He sends everybody down the hall for coffee. He takes me into his office. I am a mess. I am crying and crying. I start to tell him about what's going on behind closed doors. And Kate, what's interesting about all of that is that I represented Alaska at the White House Conference on Children and Youth in Washington, D.C. when I was 14. I was a DMLA sweetheart. I was junior prom queen. I was a leader in school. I was Miss Anchorage, Miss for Rendezvous, first runner-up to Miss Alaska, all of these outer things. But behind closed doors, I was being told I was worthless, particularly as I reached puberty and beyond. There were some real issues. My mother was very deeply depressed, obviously. And I was told that if anyone got to know me well, they would have nothing to do with me. Oh. So I had lots and lots and lots of personas. And Frank said to me that day, Kate, he said, Michelle, the person that I cast in the role of Emily is not any of those personas. It's the person behind it. You are not an empty vessel. I see who you are, he said to me. A beautiful and caring and compassionate and tender and creative and talented human being. And he said, that's what I want to see on this stage. And that's what I want to see in life.
That man saved your life.
He saved my life. He saved my life.
And he saved your life because he stepped in for you and spoke you.
That's right.
You.
That's exactly right. And do you know, I didn't realize how much that was pivotal to the coaching that I've been doing and working with adults over I've been doing this now 40 years. I'll be 78 in June as a professional storyteller traveling the world. And the gift in that is, I think that's my secret sauce. We've talked about this with your secret sauce. It's the ability to see the person behind the masks and to hear the story that's not being told, and to be able to ask the questions to bring that story out and then reflect it back to a person, which I do at the end of each of my coaching sessions, so that a person experiences their own story out loud, coming through the mouthpiece of another person, so that they can witness the magnificence of their own life.
It's a true art form, and it's also a science. And that's what I love about it. And I think that your background working in the corporate is powerful. And I think your time is going to be even more magnificent as we move into this time where the importance of personal development and how it is now scientifically backed with neuroscience is science is on our side in the coaching industry, because we're realizing how much of the return on investment and can be measured. It's an outcome-based business. And if you are able to tell your story, you will be a better leader.
That's right.
everyone who's listening to that to understand that what is limiting your success in your life, in your marriage, in your every aspect of your life is only limited by your inability or the fear that holds you back from speaking your truth.
That's right.
And it really starts with this story that you just shared, is that someone disrupted you. And this was a particularly harsh public experience for you, but it was the gift of him being willing to call you on your bullshit.
That's so true. And he had no problem doing that whatsoever.
I
But
love
you're
that
absolutely
man.
right. You're absolutely right. And I'm indebted to him and many others, by the way, that have given me permission to become real. You know, I love that line in The Velveteen Rabbit by Marjorie Williams,
Yes.
when they have that conversation, the Velveteen Rabbit and the Skin Horse. You know, my background's in children's literature. I'm a former director of children's library services. So of course I love story, and it's very relevant for adults. When the skin horse they're talking about what it means to be real. And the skin horse says, well, you know, when you become real, he said, by that time your stuffing is hanging out and your eyes are drooping, and there's sections of your skin that are frayed, and the little Velveteen Rabbit is thinking, I don't know if I want to become real. But what the skin horse says is, but when you become real, when someone loves you that much, you can never become unreal ever again. And I think that's true with ourselves. When we love ourselves with all of our, you know, stuffing showing and our shortcomings and our frailties, and we're able to embrace the whole of who we are, then we never become unreal or plastic or a mask. The mask is removed. It's not there any longer, and we're free to express our wholeness. And I think when we do that, that's when we start to really not only experience a shift in our own lives, but a shift in the lives of others.
That's a powerful statement. And what I want to ask you is this: why should people give two hoots about this? Because I think most people are like, I'm fine, Michelle. Like, I don't know why you're just thinking this is so important. What do you want people to know? Like, if you were in front of, and I know you have touched millions of people, if you were on the stage and you were given 1 minute to tell people, that's all you had, what is the reason why, Michelle? Why are stories important?
Yeah. Well, stories are the glue that connect us. Stories are the glue that hold us together. The shortest distance between two people is a story. We are created as human beings, different than the animal kingdom, to create meaning, And when we are able to story, we are able to create meaning for ourselves and for others. And people, you know, I work with a lot of leaders, thousands, 10,000 of them now, and different corporations and entrepreneurs and so on. And I say, you know, no one can trust you if they don't feel like they know you. And the way they come to know you is for you to share some of your story, not from a place of braggadocious, you know, take a look at me and how wonderful I am, but rather, what are your values? What matters to you? And what is a story that you could share that embodies one of those values, so that sitting in that audience, sitting across from you at a table, I can find our connection. You know, I love this line from Crow and Weasel by Barry Lopez. It says, when stories come to you, care for them and give them away when they're needed. Sometimes people need stories more than food to stay alive. That's why we put stories in one another's memory. That is how we take care of one another. So I say to leaders, you know, I can't trust you unless I feel like I know you. And the only way I can really come to know you, if I'm not working alongside you or all of that, is by virtue of the stories you tell. So I say to people, pay attention. What stories are you telling? And when I used to perform in schools, you know, for many, many years, hundreds of thousands of children actually around the world, millions actually, then, and I would come back to that school 3 years later, 5 years later, and a kid would say to me, "Oh, Michelle, I remember when you came to my class and you told that story about," and then they're repeating the story to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, you know what? If that story is going to stick in that child's heart and mind that long, it's got to be worthy of being there. So it made me come back, not only in terms of that work, but this work too, in terms of my present life. And I say to leaders, and you know, what are the stories you have that are worthy of sticking to another human being and inspiring and touching them and allowing them not only to connect with you, but to connect with themselves.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't know if you agree with this or not. I'm curious, but as we're moving into this extraordinary, I mean, I know COVID was rough for a lot of people. However, I believe that we are coming into a time of profound uncertainty. And as the saying goes, challenging times make strong men, really beautiful times make weaker men. I believe that this is going to become more of a paramount issue as we move into this next phase. I truly do. So what do you want people to know? And how do we even start the process of telling our stories? What would be a way that my daughter said something to me very interesting, Michelle, and you made me think of this, that I never told my children stories about me. And they're like, "Mom, I don't know anything about that about you."
Oh, wow.
And I realized that because I was always in the trauma response of listening to everyone else's stories, that I never shared my own, and even with my own children. And I realized that was a pretty big error on my part. And so if you were to be coaching me, what would you say would be a good place to start to be able to start recreating and remembering who we were and to remember who we are?
I love that question. And I love the fact that your daughter said that to you, Mama. Because she's, well, no, but what she's saying to you is she's curious.
Yeah.
And she wants to know, you know, there's nothing worse than telling your story to somebody who doesn't want to hear it.
Right.
Right. And if we were working together, I would be asking you a series of questions. And I would be taking you through guided imageries and other kinds of things to help unearth what I call the delicious story bits. Because oftentimes our memories are lodged, as you know this from your NLP work, they're lodged in a place or a time or an experience. And so when we start to unravel that, all of these amazing things begin to come forward. And you know, in relation to what you just said about your daughter, I made peace with my mother the last 3 weeks before she died. We were estranged a good period of time. Loved her much, but it was challenging.
Of course.
And so there we were in the Pioneer Home in Anchorage, and my mother had 30 brain tumors, so we knew she had only about 3 weeks or so. But I started to ask my mother questions of stories that I didn't know, or maybe I'd heard them, but I hadn't really remembered them, and so forth. So I think as a parent, it's asking yourself, it's getting connected to your own, what I call a cairn, you know, the stones that direct you on a hiking path, your cairn of stones, of stories, your wisdom, to identify, you know, what have I learned in my life? What are some of the lessons that have come to me that might be of value were I to impart them to my child? And rather than doing it in lecture format, because we're all sort of going, oh, yeah, right. It's like, what are the stories that I don't even have to say what the point is? Let the story make it for me, and let myself gift my child the wisdom of what I've learned in my life, so that they can have that. And then, of course, record it if you can, because I think we forget that we each have experienced so many things in life, and there are bits and pieces of wisdom, but like a tapestry, which is why designing stories and designing environments is a passion, is that every tapestry has all of these threads that form a pattern, but often they're fragmented. They're not woven together.
Mhm.
So the first thing that happens when you start working on your own history and story, your own values and how did they come to be, the kinds of questions you were asking today, which were fabulous of me, then you start to see those patterns. And out of that, not only do you feel more whole, but you feel like you actually have more to share with someone because the pieces are all woven together.
Mm.
You know, I've had people that have been like boat people in Vietnam, leaving in the middle of the night and not being thrown overboard on a big ship and down into the hole and not even knowing if their family had made it. I mean,
Mm.
difficult, powerful stories. I've had people sobbing, men in my, working with them one-on-one.
Of course.
And in these leadership programs at the Boeing Company, I would say, we need that story. Would you be willing to share it? Michelle, I haven't shared it with anybody. I know, but we need it. Because how can we know who you are if we don't know where you've been?
Mm.
How can we value what you bring to the table? Your resiliency, your tenacity, your faith, all of these things, if we do not know your story.
It's petrifying, though. I would say that to you. I think that that's what, I mean, I'm a high performance coach, so I
Yes,
really focus a lot on the science of motivation. Let's just say, for example, right? I mean, I'm a science and arts nerd. I'm a theater major, but I'm friggin' love science. So
that's
when we look
wonderful.
at motivation and what motivates us, we can either be motivated by fear,
Mm-hmm.
or the positives are motivated by growth, by happiness, by freedom and transcendence. But what motivates us by fear are oftentimes the drivers, right? So we're
Mm-hmm.
afraid of the process, we're afraid of outcome, and more profoundly, we're afraid of loss of love or being
Mm-hmm.
judged. And I think
Yep.
that this is particularly true when we're talking about stepping out to speak your truth, because you
That's
will
right.
have people that hate you,
That's
Michelle.
right.
There are
That's right.
people, as I mentioned to you, as I was posting, made this journey, my bikini competition journey more public, I lost hundreds of followers because people
Oh,
were
wow.
offended by all of me. And that's why I knew it was going to happen. And that's why I didn't do it. And
Mm.
it's just interesting that I was like, I can't do it, not do it anymore. And so, but how would you address that? Because there is the I would call it the assassin, the darkness that is around us when we tell our truth.
That's
And
right.
it's not necessarily just shame and guilt that lives in darkness. There is truth that is hidden in darkness because people will not like our light. They will not like our stories and our truth.
That's right.
How do you
That's
manage
right.
that as a leader?
I love that question. And first of all, I really applaud you that you have chosen to reveal all of you and what you've just done with your competition, Kate. Because I think what we have to look at, and at least I've had these conversations with clients, what is the cost to you by not sharing?
Mm.
What is the cost to you when you silence a part of who you are? How is that backfiring in other areas of your life? And is the pain of that worth it to keep doing it?
Are you looking to learn more about high performance coaching with Kate McKay? Please go to the website at kate-mckay.com to learn more.
And how do you measure? How do you know? Like, what is the weighing out? And I'm sorry to be so technical, but
That's right.
this is such an important thing because
Yeah.
I coach a lot of men. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so men and women, but I understand male psychology quite well.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in a petrified state of having no idea how they speak their truth because they were never given the space to do so. Our
That's right.
society handcuffs men. They
Yeah.
muzzle them, their true emotion. That's
That's
why I'm
right.
getting really in here, because
Yeah.
it
Yes.
takes a friggin' ton of courage to speak truth, far
That's
more
right.
as a warrior,
That's right.
as a
That's
badass, to
right.
speak your truth. How do you speak of the fear of the truth telling?
We have to address it. Number
Mhm.
one, we have to
Love
look
it.
at what's going to happen as a result, right? What could possibly occur here? And are you willing to go there? Is your need to be an authentic, and I mean, people would say to me, "Oh, Michelle, you do that touchy-feely storytelling crap. I'm not interested." All right. Stay away from me,
Right.
girl. I don't
Yeah,
want
get
anything
away
to
from
do with
me.
you. And here I am. This is my life. And I'm going,
Yes, stab me.
but then, I mean, I had to get my own thick skin. I'd have to ask myself the question, Michelle, do you believe in what you're doing?
Yeah, I
Do
love it.
you really think people's stories matter?
Mm,
It is not their job to come to you, girlfriend. It is your job to
mm.
go to them. You got to speak in a language that they can relate to. I mean, I've had people in a survey say, "How dare you? You made me cry."
Right.
But, the whole reason I ended up at Boeing, I did a keynote for their 200 senior vice presidents and the CEO, and told 4 stories. They were raising 26 million from Boeing employees. And 3 weeks later, I get a phone call from somebody saying, "Are you that storyteller that makes grown men cry?" And
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah, that would be me." And she
Yeah.
said,
Beautiful.
"Can you teach us how to do that?" So I think it's a matter of, from a coaching perspective, Kate, is a person ready?
Mm,
And are you willing to go there for the sake of showing up in an authentic way? And by the way, I say to leaders, if you start, you cannot ask your people to do what you aren't willing to do.
mm,
You can't ask people to come to you with the truth about a situation that's going on if you don't reveal to them
mm,
how you're going to handle that if it happens. And it's not words I want to hear. I want to hear an example of when you did that.
mhm,
Because if you don't offer that up, I don't know if I can trust you or not.
mhm.
And so I really think that things are evolving, things are changing, people are growing in lots of different ways. And I think that, thank God, all of the things we're reading about leadership and, to your point, to science and all of that, people are starting to see there is a different way. And
Mm,
I think men in particular are starting to understand the constraints and the ways in which they have been limited in their expression
mm,
by virtue of what culture says. And,
mhm,
I just say to my clients, it just takes a few brave men.
mhm.
It
Exactly.
just takes a few brave men. And if
Right.
you're willing to step out, let me tell you something, you are going to be shocked by how many
Yes.
people are going to open up because you started it.
Yep. Totally. Right. And that's why I love, we're really moving into a more of a group learning environment. And this is just
That's right.
perfect for what you and I do. We are here to facilitate. And so people don't want to live in a lecture setting. They don't want to be talked at. They
That's
want to
right.
be taught, they want to talk with.
Mhm.
And we have to teach the skills of how we are with people in conversation. And we are the warriors of that space. We are warriors stepping into helping people bridge the gap of deeper connection and deeper commitment to that process. I can't imagine a more sacred process.
No, I can't either. In fact, when I moved from working with children into this environment of working with adults, and I really struggled because I felt I just established the storytelling residency program at Children's Hospital. I'd been with 1,900 patients and their families with extraordinary outcomes of healing, even those that were dying for them. And I remembered a woman and she was in leadership development, and she said to me, I'll never forget, she said to me, "Michelle, what makes you think working with adults is any less sacred than working with children?"
Mm, wow.
And I thought, oh, okay.
Okay.
And that enabled me to embrace this opportunity to allow people to connect with their authentic selves. It's like a vice president said to me, "Michelle, I know what's going on behind closed doors in your workshops. My job is to keep you protected so you can keep doing your work, because I see the
Mm,
difference it's making in my employees' lives."
mm. That
Yeah.
makes you sleep at night, Michelle.
Yeah, it
That helps
does.
you sleep at night. You're doing
Well,
the work.
and Kate, to this point, and is that I go through my shit. You know what I'm saying? I go through my
Sure.
moments and I question and I am tempted to play small. I mean, I have to deal, as you've said in your recent post that was so beautifully written and stated, is that we go through our own shadow work and journey within, but I think that's good, because when we do that and we somehow forge our way back out again into standing in a different place, then we know it's possible. You know what I'm saying? Because if we didn't go through that, it would be really easy to say, oh, well, of course you can do thus and so. Well, not so much. And that's where I think our wounding is so precious. I said to my mother, Mama, I said, I am so blessed to have you as my mother and the experience I had, because I wouldn't be this person without it. She said, you know, your soul picked me out before you were born. And I said, there is no question about it, Mama.
Yes.
My soul did.
Yes. Isn't that true?
Mhm.
And we can still, I mean, that what I love about your story about your mom is that you still, there was the lesson, and it was true that that was the lesson that you did choose, I believe. And
Yeah.
I tell my children that, I'm like, boo, you chose me. I don't know what to tell you. You chose to come through all this, And they're like, oh, you know, and,
Well,
and you know
yeah.
what? I know and believe that my son, who I lost, who claimed and decided to ascend on his own accord in 2017, as I say, chose me exactly for that reason, because
Absolutely.
he knew I would be able to birth him and release him as a sacred process. And blessed be.
Wow.
That is not
What
true.
what a beautiful way to speak of your son. Also, Kate, when you write about him and you post about him, which I watched, every time you do that, it's like he lives on. And it's such a gift, because he is just on the other side of the veil. Yeah. And your honoring of him has, every time I've read something you've posted, Kate, I've been in tears, because this is having come through that tormented time to the other side, to see something different, something beyond, and to make something out of it that is allowing you to do the work that you do in the way that you do it. And your son is right there helping make it possible.
Yep, it sure is. Isn't that the story? Yeah, it's the story, man. It's so, yeah, I can't imagine any other way, right? And I think that that's what happens when, viewers and listeners, when you come to a place in your life that you no longer can live. When my son died, became my rebirth.
Yes.
Because I could have either crawled up in a hole and did what my mother did when my brother was murdered, or I could choose to do it another way and heal what I was birthed through. And for me, I love my son so much, and I honored him so much as a sacred relationship, that there was no other way.
Yeah.
And I want to speak to you all to say that it doesn't have to be that tragic, but you have to be disturbed enough to know that you will not go another day living inauthentically. You just won't. You can't.
You can't.
You won't.
You can't go that. The indigenous, Kate, and what you just said reminded me of it. I've studied with Angela Zarian, the late Angela Zarian, a cultural anthropologist.
Wow.
Who did the Fourfold Way. And
wow. We did talk about this book. This is an incredible book. I can't
it's
even
amazing.
know it.
Her work is amazing. And she's on, she's on YouTube. You can find her and track her. But when we would do drumming circle in the desert in Prescott, Arizona, with our heads toward the center of the circle, right, and legs outward, and you'd call in all of your totem animals and your ancestors on the right and on the father's side and on the mother's side. But what would happen is, in the drumming, what would happen is our ancestors, the indigenous would say of us, oh, maybe this is the one. Oh, maybe this is the one who will heal that which has gone before. This is the one. Oh, maybe this is the one who will heal what has gone before. And I've taken that into my heart in terms of my father, in terms of his wife, in terms of my mother, and so on, to say, it's my job to heal the lineage. And that's exactly what you are doing.
Mhm. It's
Sharing
my
with me about
honor.
yes,
It's my honor.
it is.
I
It
wear
is,
it with
Kate.
pride.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so I think that how this is so pivotal to our conversation is that when we talk about this whole concept of like self-care in our culture, right? But really what we need to start focusing on, it's not just the self work, it's the social work. It's the work that we came here to be in communion with other people. And social work is built on our stories. May I get an amen, Michelle?
You get an amen, girl. Keep
Right.
going. You're on
No, but
fire on
right?
this one.
Isn't it true that
Yes.
that this is the time
Yes.
for us to be in the social work, because our
That's right.
lessons are not in, I need to go up on a mountain and meditate and own money pot me. It's to tell your story and to
That's
be in
right.
relationship, to heal and grow, to make a difference and to have an impact. Yes?
We do not heal by ourselves.
No.
We heal in community. It's that
Yes.
simple. We heal in community. And we heal when someone else listens to our story, which you started off today with the idea of being heard deeply. And really being present to another person. And that's why in my own work and workshops, I know in yours as well, to be present for that person, because when you feel that somebody is truly listening to you and you feel that sacred space and you feel the safety of that, you can go deeper into your own story and start to weave those threads together that may have never been woven together before, because it is the listener who gentles the story out of us. To use J.O. Callahan's words, it's the
Beautiful.
listener who gentles the story out of us like so many thousands of pairs of hands. So the listener is as critical to the healing process as the person speaking.
I love that. That's so good. And it goes back to just my mentor coach, or what Brendon Bouchard says, is that coaching and storytelling, we're all coaches, we're all storytellers, but it is a influence process. Everything is an influence process. We are here in the flow of influence. And that you just said that exquisitely. The responsibility of the listener.
Yeah.
That's so powerful. So can you talk to me a little bit about like ways, because you've gone through a massive evolution and you're moving now, stepping in and into a bigger version of your story. And who are you here to serve now? And how can people play with you, Michelle? Because you have some incredible things coming out and coming forth, and I'm excited to hear about that.
Well, thank you. That's really wonderful. Well, a couple of things. I resisted for the longest time in doing an online class when COVID hit. I just said, no. I'm an in-person person. I want to feel the energy in the room because that's how I operate. And you understand that, Kate, because we're highly intuitive. And I just thought, I don't think I can. And then I kept getting nudges and people saying and so on. And so I finally did just launch the pilot of my first online 5-week actually, but it'll probably end up being 7 going forward, week class and getting to the heart of your why, with people joining us from the United States, here in Costa Rica, where I live, and also from Ireland. And it's just been a totally magical experience. And I've combined it with some private coaching sessions so that I can work one-on-one, which is what I love to do. And so that's happening. And I really would love to see that grow and get bigger. And also to do more of the one-on-one coaching. I'm really looking, Kate, for people who have something important to say and maybe not know quite how to say it. And I can help them through my work with them to bring their voice forward so that we can all benefit from their wisdom. And so that's really what juices me. I want people that truly desire to make a difference. And I think with so many of us, we don't even know our own story, or it's kind of like all over the place, and how do we start to work with it and package it in a way that can be heard? The other thing is I've been writing. I've started writing a memoir, and then I sort of set it to the side, but I did do a chapter for the Women Gone Wild Wealth Edition book. We're going to launch that in June at Barnes & Noble in Huntington Beach. And I'm very excited about that. There's going to be a big event in the evening. And so I have really come to the place I mean, I'm turning 78, if not now, when?
Got it,
So I
girlfriend.
finally said, even though my life was very big, and when I was in the Soviet Union and, did a film series for Soviet television and public television documentary and all that kind of stuff in the 80s, I think that in some ways in recent years, I've sort of gone inward a bit, and now it's ready to go outward a bit. So I really would love to take my message to larger stages and opportunities with podcasts like this one, which I so appreciate your interviewing style, Kate, and just being with you. And let's get people to unearthing what their authentic self is, and let's get those folks out there making a difference with their story.
Oh, that is amazing. You speak so beautifully.
Thank you.
I'm on the train. We're creating the train. I'm right behind you. Here we go. We're training out. And Michelle, I'm absolutely going to meet you. I'm coming out to support you guys in California to your book.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Absolutely will be there. I'm absolutely thrilled about that. And all of Michelle's information will be available in the show notes, and especially also including the Fourfold Way and links to her course, which I highly recommend. Michelle, you are seasoned and you are fresh, all in the same time. I'm just so grateful. And I want to say also too, I'm grateful that you shared that story. I will never forget I just feel like I want to cry, of you on stage in that scene and just doing the best you could to play real.
That's right.
Behind the pain. And
Yes,
that
right.
I honor you for sharing that story and the transformation that ensued. And I'm deeply grateful for the people that have been on your path, calling you out and calling you into your greatness. And I'm a sister with you on this journey, and I'm so grateful.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm honored to be on this with you, and just having this time that we have together, the privilege of my getting to know you better and to understand, where you're coming from and your commitment, your passion. It's real. It's interesting. We don't even have to open our mouths, really. We just we can feel a person's genuineness, and I feel yours. And that makes me able to open up more too, by virtue of who you are, the questions that you've asked, the way in which this interview has gone. So you have been a blessing to me, both as a person in following you, but also in this interviewing process, because it's told me more about how you show up for the people that you serve, and they're very fortunate to have you.
Thank you so much. I feel honored in all of it. So thank you so very much. And again, thanks to all the viewers and listeners. I'm Kate McKay, and I'm deeply grateful for you showing up. And please don't forget, your stories matter. Your stories will change someone's life. Your stories can even save someone's life. So dare and risk to share yourself. And the people that fall away will fall away. But oh my goodness, the people who are waiting for you, it's some good stuff. So enjoy this day. I'm grateful for all of you. Be well, and until next time, don't forget, you have greatness within you. Take care.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Master Your Life. If you enjoyed this episode, please like this and share it so that you can get notices for the next episode, releasing every week.